Okay, good evening, gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of A Fool's Interpretation of the Havamal. As always, I am your host, Robert the Fool, and we will be reading stanzas 64, 65, 66, 67, and 68. But before we get into that, I wanted to kind of rehash stanza 61, because when I was going over the episode in my head and watching it after I had posted it and everything, I feel like there was a couple of things I could have said better about it. I didn't like the analogies that I put forth and whatnot. Because then because when I was talking about like going out and making sure you have nice clothes, even though you work hard and all you really have is your work clothes, and then when you go out and you'll be all like, what, like you're all dirty in your in clothes from working in them, whether or not they've been washed or not. They're kind of dirty from being work clothes. So I'm not saying you're wearing dirty work clothes when you go out, but going out in clothes that are work clothes. They're dirty, and they're dirty from being constant work clothes. And then you'll be like, you get offended if somebody tells you to wear something nice, because you'll be like, I work hard, blah, blah. And then the way that you're trying to prove and show that you've worked hard is your work clothes, like your work clothes. You'll I've done this and I've seen people do this. So like, fucking look at me. Like you can tell by looking at this person that they work their ass off. But that is not how you show that you work your ass off in public when you're like out at dinner with your wife or your girlfriend. That is how you show you work your ass off at work. When you go out to dinner with your wife or your girlfriend, you need to be wearing clothes that you need to be wearing nice clothes that show you work your ass off because you have the money to buy them. And like it says, even if you if you don't have the money to buy the nice clothes like what you're thinking of, you whatever you can afford to buy, bro, you can go to Ross and dress for less, and get button ups and ties and stuff like that for you can get a $5 tie, like and you can piece together some cheap, nice looking clothes really easy. And so so I wanted to mention that about guys that go places in their work clothes constantly, because then it also made me think about this movie Crash and the character that the rapper Luda plays in it, when him and his buddy are trying to go out to eat, and then they go to a nice restaurant and they get told to leave because even though they're driving an expensive car and both of them are wearing expensive clothes, but they're not wearing the proper attire. You see, it doesn't matter if he's wearing $320 Jordans. They don't want that in their nice restaurant. Just like they don't want my $320 Red Wing work boots in their restaurant. They want a pair of $320 nice looking dress shoes. Or if you got a pair of $30 nice looking shoes from Ross or Fred Meyer's or Kroger's, wherever it is that you're, Sears or whatever, uh, and you look nice. They would have let a poor person in that is dressed in the proper attire over somebody who's wearing a really expensive work boots and somebody that's wearing really expensive basketball shoes. Like, what? Okay, we're back. I was having for some reason my phone was trying to connect to my computer. I don't know if that sound was heard on the recording, but I'll figure that out when I have to piece these two clips together. But anyways, so that's what I wanted to say about 61. Uh, like talking about Luda and his friend trying to go to this restaurant, and it would, but because it was like a black suit and tie restaurant, and then even they're just not wearing the proper clothing, you know. So there's I just wanted to talk about how there's a proper way in public to show that you work hard and are an upstanding member of society. You see, like the clothes that Luda was wearing, those were club clothes. That wasn't the black suit and tie restaurant clothes. And like my $320 Red Wing work boots, those aren't restaurant attire. Doesn't matter how expensive they are, they're work boots. So there's a time and place for everything. But let's get on to the stanzas at hand, which begin with 64. A wise man should use his abilities only in moderation. Then he finds when he is among the bold that no one is bravest of all. Now, what I've always thought this stanza means is like you should use your abilities only in moderation. Okay. And I'm thinking about being in a setting around a bunch of dudes at, I don't know, whether it be a party, I guess a bar, wherever you're at in some kind of social setting. I'm not really thinking about work when I'm talking about this example, but using all of your abilities only in moderation, whether that be like shit talking, debate, fighting, or like spitting game at women, especially if it's, could be some other dude's woman. I think that's what it's talking about, because then when you're among the bold, you find out that no one's the bravest of all, because you're going to everybody back then during this time, like in movies like 13th Warrior or something, you'll just kill each other. Or I mean, like, it reminds me of basic training when we were doing the hand-to-hand combat training and stuff, and pugil sticks, and then people started calling each other out. Just like, oh, I want to do you in pugil sticks. Or like in high school wrestling, people start picking each other out in practice, and if people start going hard and not giving up, then usually somebody gets hurt. And back then, obviously people died more often than they're doing today. I mean, unless you like go to some place like Chicago, holy shit, there's a whole bunch of honor killing going on in the gang wars of places like Chicago and stuff like that. So that would apply. This stanza would apply perfectly to modern American gang violence. Like when you're among people that will kill you or beat the shit out of you for what you merely say to them, and sometimes even just look at them. Watch your ass, bro. Fucking FAFO. That's what I think that this one is all about. So 65. You will often get repayment in kind for the words you speak to others. Now, obviously, today you can go online and at work or in school, people say things and they don't get paid in kind for it all the time. I think that this stanza would have carried a lot more weight during a time when word of mouth and communication by speaking, and maybe even in times of only letter communication. I feel like this stanza would have carried more weight. This is something I was talking to my wife about recently, because both of us really like the I haven't read the books. I'm pretty sure she finished them, but the girl with the dragon tattoo movie, and we were talking about that, and then we started laughing because we were like, "There's no way that story premise wouldn't even matter today." Like a journalist making up a story. Well, he didn't even make it up, because he thought he had true information in that story, and then it found out that all his contacts were lies, and they set him up, and blah blah blah, and they ruined his credit as a journalist because he posted this totally bunk story. In today's world, that happens all the time. Like, nobody cares. So like that movie wouldn't even make sense to make today because it happened, like, that doesn't happen to people. And so it's like very rarely do I think in today's world do people get repayment in kind for the words that they speak to others. Uh, Often because of the way our society is structured today, uh, the people that are in the right have to bite their tongue, uh, so you don't lose your job or get suspended from school or whatever it is. But and then oftentimes the people, nothing happens to the person that instigates the situation. The antagonizer never has something done to them. I like I I used to get told by my parents when I was in school, like, you're imagining it. They're not uh like, you're a bad teenager too. You deserve to be in trouble just like that other kid. But then, and I'm like, no, I didn't start the fight, and I didn't even do anything really. But then when my kid's in school, I notice this too. Like, these other kids will start problems with my daughter, and then, well, not anymore because we homeschool her. This is a few years ago. And then they both receive the same punishment, even though after, like, the vice principal and stuff would review the security tapes that they have for, like, the playground and stuff, they would be like, oh yeah, your daughter didn't do anything and she didn't lie, and this other student is the one that instigated the situation, but they're still both going to be restricted from going on recess or playing Foursquare or whatever it was. uh and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so it's really frustrating to read a stanza like 65 and then know how it should apply to the world, but we live in a world where it doesn't really get applied properly, and people get away with lying, bold-faced lies all the time. 66. I have come too early to some events and too late to others. The drinks were all gone, or else not even made. A hated man seldom finds the right time. And when I read this, like, you could look at this like at face value, and like, oh, a hated man seldom finds the right time to, like, show up to a party. So, like, what you're like thinking, so since nobody likes me or whatever, nobody likes this person, they're getting told the wrong time to show up. I don't think it, like, that's, I guess you could look at it at face value like that, but nothing in this, like, old culture is like at face value. Like, they're always doing things in riddles and kennings and metaphors, and it's like hardly ever do I ever try to take a stanza at face value unless it is something so simple as, like, 65. Uh, but I think this has more to do with, like, your weird or your luck or, well, like, whatever. Uh, because, like, what I think it's referencing to, talking about the hated man, is like, if you constantly show up to things at the wrong time, then you become the hated man. And so you're the hated man. The hated man seldom finds the right time. Like, he's the hated man because he seldom finds the right time. I think like, it's a path, like the path to your friend's house that is easy. Um, this dude keeps showing up to things at the wrong time, and and that's frustrating to a host, and so then that makes them a hated person. I don't think it's the hosts not liking them and telling them to show up at a incorrect time. I think It's a fool that doesn't know how to manage his time correctly, showing up to things at the wrong time and being hated for that. And so, yeah, manage your time correctly. Like, dude, there's a couple people that I know that can't uh, keep an appointment for the life of them. And like, uh, I always say, like, I always try to be 15 minutes early to something. Like, and then that trying to be 15 minutes early to everything solves your problem of like, oh shit, so whatever it is that happens, you left your phone or whatever, kid, forgot their sippy cup or something, you got to go back to the house or whatever, or something messed up along the way. Trying to be 15 minutes early lets you account for some mistake that happens. 67. Now and then I've been invited to a friend's home as long as I had no need for food, or as long as I could make my inhospitable host's cellars fuller rather than emptier. Now, I think this is just reference to a kind of friend or family member or somebody that we all know. Uh, this happened just uh, the other night at my daughter's volleyball like team party. We're at like a pizza parlor place, and there's an arcade, and I give her $20 for tokens and stuff. And then I see her and all of her friends on her team, playing games, and they're bringing me tickets to hold on to them for them. They got like a little over 1,000 tickets or something. But then when we're going home that evening, and I'm driving home with my daughter, she's telling me that one of the girls she's like, that girl I was telling you about that always like gives me mean looks if like I don't do something right during a game or something, like if I mess up a serve or something. I was like, yeah, I know who you're talking about. And she's like, oh, well, tonight she was like really nice to me. I was like, oh, why do you think that is? And she's like, I don't know. Maybe she was telling me maybe it's because we were just all like hanging out, because actually getting to play and talk and do things. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. I was like, I remember having dicks on my baseball and soccer teams and, wrestling and in high school and stuff. But then when we'd have like some team sleepover, it seems like some of that stuff, like we all just hung out and had a good time. So maybe that's what it was. But then my daughter was like, well, yeah, but then they all only had $5 each, and I had $20. And then she was just, coming up to me again and again and again. Oh, hey, can I get another, token? Can I get a couple other tokens? Blah, blah. I was like, oh, yeah. I know people like that too. Yeah. You'll come across people like that the rest of your life. And so I was like, telling her, you always got to watch out for people like that. But yeah, you'll have people like that in your life from being 10 years old, like my daughter, until the day you die. Um, and like, honestly, I don't even know, uh, like what to say to do about some like people like that. Because like, I'd say sometimes a couple of my family members are like that, but it's I think it's something hard to deal with in relationships, especially with family members, and that's obviously why it's in here as a stanza, uh, because it's something that bothers people. That because like when you think about these being written, and it's the words of the High One, so this is like stuff that Odin said that then some like somebody copied down long time later, right? But but then when I think about why this stanza was chosen, I think about like what people were talking to their local religious leaders about back then. And obviously this must have been something that they spoke to them about, because it gets mentioned here in a stanza. And so I don't have like, usually when I read a stanza, I give like some kind of metaphor, or I speak about something that happened in my life that pertains to it. I have like a kind of answer of to deal with, of how to deal with the situation, but I don't really know what to do in this situation other than to accept that some people, when they invite you over for 4th of July, they expect you to leave some beer. Or like, yeah, I don't know. Um, but whenever you do go someplace, one thing that my wife and I always do, especially if we're at family member's house, like an older person, we stay and clean up and help them clean up if we're able to stay that late, like till after the event is over. Um, and I think that helps that situation. But yeah, move on to 68. Fire is best for mortals and sunshine, and also good health, if you have it, and living beyond reproach. Now, what I think this is talking about, like, fire is best for mortals. I honestly think this is just talking about being able to have a home with a hearth, uh, and like a fireplace and everything, and be like have uh, you know, I mean, in today's world, we're not living like back then, but having a house and heating it. All right. I think that's what it's talking about for fire is best for mortals. We like to be warm and cozy, wrapped up in blankets. And so that's what I'm thinking that this is talking about. And the whole sunshine thing, uh, like even in, um, what is it, Rigspala, the poem about Heimdall, like creating the classes of men, when it talks about the thrall class, even though they're out in the sun working all the time, and it talks about them being like ruddy and like dark skinned because of it, like because you're getting a tan. It also talks about them being like they're strong and they're happy and they love each other, and so I think this stanza about sunshine is because also, even though, like I've said before, even though a lot of scholars and theologians or whatever, people with degrees will tell you that Odin was a god for the nobles. This the Havamal is very clearly, time and time again, speaking to poor people. And this stanza about being out in the sunshine, being good for mortals, like, nobles wanted to be fair skinned, right? They didn't want to be out in the sun. Like, it doesn't matter where you go in the world. Back then, during the time of this stuff being written and before, all over the world, it if you could spend more time inside and not be tanned by the sun, that showed that you had money. And so all the nobles wanted to be fair skinned and, stay inside and not get suntans and blah, blah, blah. But this stanza is telling you that being outside in the sun is good for you. And so what I think this stanza is kind of about talking about back then, is speaking to like another poor dude that works outside, and he's reminding you that even though you might be working all day in the sun and it's hot and sweaty and you're all sunburnt because of it, um, you're stronger and healthier and happier a lot of the times than this rich ass noble that's sitting inside, you know, being lazy or whatever. Uh, and the the good, and also good health if you have it, because it doesn't matter, like this, like we've talked about the fat person, the fat person. Back then, if you're fat, I'm gonna assume not that many poor farmer people or whatever were fat. I'm going to assume like maybe the more somebody that had excess food to eat was fat. Today, a bunch of poor people are fat. Uh, like, and so look, when it's talking about uh, things like that, it can be sometimes backwards because like because a poor person back then is going to have good health because they're going to be working with their hands in the field, and then they're going to be eating more basic food, whereas the rich person is going to be sitting inside eating more succulent food, will be less healthy. And so, but you know, if you have it, uh, I think implies that it might have been something back then to hard to hard to consistently maintain. But in today's world, being healthy is simple. Uh, like I was saying, we have poor people that are obese, and because we have an overabundance of calories in the worst possible way, in the easiest forms to consume, and living beyond reproach. So, I mean, obviously, I was just talking about overeating, living beyond reproach. I live out. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so and the reproach is everywhere. There's open prostitution in our streets. There's open drug use. There's just people living on the streets. Um, living beyond reproach is because, like, okay, we could get back to the stanza of Heimdall, or his name is Rig in the poem, but it's Heimdall. Creating the classes like the thrall class, and then like they have habits of living in reproach, uh, like sleeping with a bunch of women and drinking a bunch, and they're loud and they fight, and a whole bunch of habits and traits that you don't want. And I mean, that's what's all over the place where I live right now. And so, I mean, yeah, you don't want to be like that. It's like, dude, you want to go to work, you want to get married, you want to get a job, you want to get married, you want to get a house, you want to have a family, you want to, and then like, okay, so when my daughter was in first grade, they had to do this little project. It wasn't even a project. It was just a thing. They're in first grade. They got told to color their dads on a piece of paper, and then like write a couple words on it or something. And so then when I was picking up my daughter, and this was the coolest thing to me, it made me feel like I was doing something right. They had them all taped up on the wall, right? And I'm looking at all these drawings that all these kids did of their dads, and they're all great, it's all real cute and everything. And but everybody drew their dads just looking like normal people, and then my daughter drew me looking like a superhero, like in a blue, like with a gold belt, blue suit, like with an R on my chest and like a big red cape and stuff, uh and so, said some stuff about me being like a super dad and everything. And that, I was like, okay, I know I'm doing something right. And so like I knew that I was living beyond reproach if I can make my little daughter think that boy, draw me like that when nobody else drew their dads like a superhero. So that so yeah, you got to I don't know, bro. I'm only 37 years old. I got a 10-year-old daughter. I got a 2-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old. So like I'm still in the middle of raising kids, but it's for like living beyond reproach. Okay, bro. Like don't drink all the time. It's not that. It's like, all right, let's bust this down and get simple. Don't drink all the time. If you're gonna drink, like save it Like, maybe get a drink by yourself. Don't drink in front of your kids. Don't get drunk in front of your kids. I'm not saying don't have a couple of beers. Like, well, like that's different. I'm talking about getting shit faced. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Don't get fucking shit faced in front of your kids. Save that for some other time, like by yourself or something, or when your kids aren't going to see you. You know, don't be a fat ass. Like, get in shape, work out, stop having disgusting eating habits, like eat actual food. And then like uh living beyond reproach. So like then this goes like you need to like you need to stop watching porn all the time. You need to stop watching so much dumb shit on TV. You need to fill your brain with with like with good spiritual and entertain, like with good spiritual things and good like entertainment things, all the mental things that are going inside of your brain, whether it be like entertainment or something spiritual or something educational. Like, when was the last time you taught yourself something? Living beyond reproach can be, it's kind of, can be a vague thing, but because it encompasses a wide variety of, I mean, it encompasses the way you live your entire life. And obviously nobody's perfect, and you don't have to be perfect. But what you do have to do is try not to be a shitbag and be successful at it. Like, come on, get at least get a C+ in life, for fuck's sake. It's not that hard to be a good dad. It's not that hard to be a good husband either. And I've been trailing on for about 27 minutes. So I'm going to cut this thing off because I feel like I've said enough. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. And happy Veterans Day.